Yeah.
Jeff Strand here. I have an announcement. My camera doesn't seem to be working, I think, but announcement is that based on a very short notice from the city clerk who will be managing the joint public hearing meeting, we've been informed why I'm late. We've been informed that CLIC members really should attend the 6 p.m. joint public hearing in order to ensure a quorum. So really sorry about the short notice. It's contrary in the past to what our former executive director, Mike Ablin, just had the executive committee basically attend. The new direction is that it should be like a regular CLIC meeting and the CLIC members should attend if we can possibly get quorum. So could we informally do a show of hands or some indication about who can attend on short notice? And I'm a raised hand.
Do you want me to, is it easier? Do you want me to just like kind of call the roll?
Maybe the staff could get a number. It looks favorable, but
I can only be there for a few minutes and I have a work meeting.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks.
So, John, could you make it? I'll just quickly go through it because I can't see everyone's hands.
What is that, Neil?
Yeah, that's Neil.
Why don't let's formally open the meeting the way we normally do it, and then we can address this.
Good. So I will start us off. As a reminder, this meeting will be recorded. Please limit use of the chat as those comments are not visible to the public, and we do not want a conversation going on separate from what is verbalized in the meeting. The regular meeting of the Capital Long Range Improvements Committee Transportation Task Force will now begin.
Good afternoon. My name is John Bernstein, and I am the chair of the Capital Long Range Improvement Committee Transportation Task Force. Before we begin, I'd like to note that this meeting includes the remote participation of members as authorized under Minnesota Statute Section 13D.021 due to the declared local health pandemic. I will now call this meeting to order and ask the clerk to call the roll so that we may verify the presence of a quorum.
All right, John Bernstein.
Here.
Steve Brandt.
Here.
Sonia DeGarmo.
Here.
Engel.
Here.
Amity Foster.
Here.
Risa Hustad.
Here.
Katie Jones.
Here.
Matt Kazinka.
Here.
Dan Miller.
Here.
George Montague.
Here.
Todd Schumann.
Here.
Here, Jeff Strand.
Here.
Did anyone not have their name called? I feel like I'm missing someone.
Eric Mulder did not have my name called.
Oh, yeah, that's right. So that's third guy. So, what's that? Oh, and then Kai. There we go. So that's 14 members.
Wow, that's either, is that 100% attendance? I think it might be. Do you know, Neil?
Yeah, I believe it is. If everyone, yeah, that's 100% attendance.
Very nice. Way to go, everybody. Thank you. With that, we will proceed to our agenda, a copy of which was posted for public access to the city's legislative information management system, which is available at lims.minneapolismn.gov. All right, so with that, we'll start the meeting. Jeff, I'll give you the floor in a second. I recognize you're just the messenger, but I find this to be patently absurd on the part of the city, and I'm happy to go on record publicly with this. I think this is just outrageous. I've been on this committee for 15 years. While that meeting is titled a joint meeting, it has never been run by CLIC. We are guests there at that meeting. It's a meeting that's run by the Planning Commission, and so that the notion that we need to, I don't even think they've called a roll for us in the past. So this is beyond silly. Somebody needs to straighten out, in my view. With that, I know you're the messenger, so proceed with what you were talking about.
Thanks, Chair John. So yes, Jeff Strand here. My camera isn't working. Finance and Property Services staff informed us that the city clerk indicated the Planning Commission, Committee of the Whole, and CLIC will both need to do a roll call today. And if we don't have a quorum of CLIC members planning to attend, then the alternative that I'll be prepared to do is to say that we will adjourn to our next regular full body meeting at noon on May 26th. So that's a fairly simple workaround. And then we'll continue, those that are present will continue to listen to the comments, and the meeting recording presumably will be available to members. So it's simply trying to get a head count on who may be able to attend the 6 p.m. Joint public hearing. Usually the Planning Commission Committee of the Whole turns over the public hearing session to the CLIC chair, and then the CLIC chair opens and closes the public hearing. So that's the ask, and I agree with your concerns.
Steve, I see you in queue. Just hang on a second. I want to address one other thing that's related to this. This is probably a question for Neil. And Neil, if you don't have the answer, maybe you can find out from somebody while we're on the call today. I've received emails from at least 3 citizens of the city who want to submit testimony for the public hearing tonight, but cannot attend. They're out of town or otherwise unavailable. So they've submitted via email to me written testimony because it's unclear how to go about getting their testimony into the record of that meeting. So could you confirm how we go about doing that? Do I just need to forward these emails to somebody to make sure that occurred?
Let me, I'll message Robert right now, but if you keep going, I can circle back and give you an answer.
That was my intent. Perfect. Thank you. All right. I've got Steve in queue and then Risa. Go ahead, Steve.
I have 2 questions. One is the meeting tonight time limited? I think it was noticed as like 6 to 7 o'clock. And the second is I just wanted to make people aware that I revised the general comment I made last week that did not meet with much favor to meet some of the objections. I don't care if it comes up today or if it comes up in the general CLIC meeting, but I wasn't sure. And I posted it in the draft comments as well. So I just wasn't sure which one it was appropriate at now or next week.
Risa, go ahead.
Yeah, just a point of clarification. If we try to make a quorum for a planning commission meeting, is the next planning commission meeting on the table, or would it have to be this evening's meeting?
Jeff, do you want to respond to that?
Chair, yeah, Mr. Chair, my understanding is this is our published joint public hearing. This is it. And so then the meeting, if we don't have a CLIC member quorum, then we simply, I have a script to read, blah, blah, blah. We will adjourn until our regular meeting on May 26th, and then we'll continue the public hearing. Those present will listen and stay on, and then presumably the recording will be shared with the CLIC members and the public.
I'm going to take this opportunity once again to make more public comments about this because we're not getting much traction anywhere else, and I'm finding this to be patently absurd, and I want to be publicly on record about it. I don't know if this is the Full Employment Act for the city clerk's office or what, but I'm finding this to be ridiculous on so many levels. It's not even funny. And I want to be clear that this is not only this issue, but it's also the open meeting laws. And I want to start by saying very clearly that I am very supportive of the general concept of open meeting laws, that important binding decisions are not made behind closed doors by people that are inaccessible to the public and who are affected by those decisions. Having said that, the idea that a meeting like this, which is a task force subcommittee meeting of a committee that has no binding authority whatsoever, and this task force is making no decisions that are final, to me is ridiculous. This should not be a public meeting. And it's not that we want to hide, it's that there's striking a balance between having transparency and allowing private citizens who are not elected officials, who are not making binding decisions, be able to talk in a transparent way in process about the comments that we want to make without all of that being public and people misunderstanding things that are in process that have not in fact been decided yet. That runs the risk of people getting emails and others getting upset when we haven't even made a final decision. And I think it's ridiculous that a meeting like this is being forced to be made public. Furthermore, in 15 years, these meetings have never been public. They have been held in rooms in the City Hall that city staff would have difficulty finding, let alone the public. And on top of that, my prediction is this will return to a non-public meeting next year once COVID is gone. This is opportunistic stuff by the city clerk's office during COVID because they can. And the idea that we're approving minutes when this meeting is being recorded is ridiculous, right? What do you get for, what's better for minutes than an actual live recording of a meeting that people can go back and review? The notion that we're wasting time taking minutes or recording minutes is just another example of the absurdity of this. If I sound frustrated, I am, and I'll leave it there, and I hope the right people hear this. All right, with that, so we'll hear back from Neil about what I need to do. Just so people know, there's a dead-end water main issue that several of us raised during the public or during the presentations from Waterworks, and there's I've seen the map. You'd be amazed how many areas of the city are impacted by this. Steve, help me out. I think is it 500 dead-end water mains around the city? Yeah, he's nodding his head. He's muted. And they're all over the city. You know, geographically, there's not any one area. It happens that the people that have been pretty vocal about this that I'm aware of and have contacted us live over near the river. I've forgotten. Steve, do you know what the neighborhood is? Unmute yourself.
It would be part of Longfellow,
Thank you.
northern Longfellow.
Thank you. So they've been dealing with this for a long time. To me, this is an equity issue. It might be a different equity issue from the way you think about it, but the reality is everybody in the city is paying the same rate for water use, and everybody ought to be getting the same quality water. And if you look at this stuff, they clearly are not. Anyways, 3 different people have sent me information that they would like made part of the public record tonight. And moving into the comment stuff, Steve and I are going to author a comment on this that we'll present next week. We wanted to wait until after we see the testimony that these people submit. And as most of you probably know, some of you may not, the minutes of the meeting tonight become part of the CLIC report. They become an appendix to it. So it'll enable us to write this comment and refer to that information without having to go into a lot of detail in the comment itself about all the technicalities around this problem. All right, so with that, before we dive into comments, does anybody have any questions or concerns they want to raise? If so, please raise your hand and I'll recognize you.
John, we still do need to adopt the agenda and the meeting minutes from last meeting.
Again, I'll say, and I forwarded this to the city, and I found this directly on the state website, the Office of Administration, that is in fact a myth around open meetings. So that is not a requirement of the open meeting law. I do, and Neil, I'm just stating this for the record, you know, and you don't need to respond to this. I do recognize that the city clerk's office has the right to force us and other committees to do above and beyond the open meeting law, but that is in fact what this is. This is myth, and the notion that we need to approve an agenda, which there's one item on the agenda, or minutes when these are publicly posted recordings of these meetings is absolutely ridiculous. Again, with that, go ahead, Neil.
All right, so I'm going to call the roll. So it would be John Bernstein.
Aye.
Steve Brandt.
Aye, or here.
Sonia DeGarmo.
I'm here, but I thought we already called the roll.
This is not the roll call. This is approving the minutes and the agenda.
Okay, thank you. Aye.
Scott Engel.
Aye.
Emily Foster.
Aye.
Minstead.
Aye.
Lisa Hustad.
Aye.
Katie Jones.
Aye.
Inca.
Aye.
Erica Mounter.
Aye.
Dan Miller.
Aye.
George Montague.
Aye.
Todd Schumann.
Aye.
Chair Jeff Strand.
Aye.
All right, so that's 14 ayes.
Okay. So does anybody have any questions or concerns that they'd like to raise before we jump in here? I see Jeff's hand up. I'll recognize him. If anybody else wants to ask a question or comment, raise your hand as well. Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, thanks, John. I guess I still didn't feel like we had a indication of who could not attend, so maybe could I ask a point of privilege to say if anybody can't attend at 6 p.m. to just let the clerk know now?
Go ahead. Actually, before I recognize other people, Jeff, how about if we just do a roll call vote? This is not anything official, just so that, or let's have Neil just call the roll and see who can attend tonight. Would that help?
That would help. Sorry, I was just trying to save time.
All right, I think that's going to be the easiest way to do this. Neil, do you just want to, so to be clear, Neil's going to call the roll. It's just if you can attend tonight. This is not pressure. So if you can go, say yes. If not, say no. Go ahead.
John Bernstein.
Yes.
Steve Brandt.
Yes, for at least an hour.
Sonia DeGarmo.
No.
Engel. Scott Engel. Amity Foster.
Yes.
Kai Goodmisted.
Solid maybe.
Risa Hustad.
I have a conflict, but if quorum is necessary, I can be in attendance for some.
Okay. Katie Jones.
Yes, I'll be there.
I think
Most likely not, but I'll try.
Erica Mounter.
Yes, I'll be there.
Dan Miller.
Yes.
George Montague.
I've got to hop on the road and drive for a few hours, but I'll dial in when I get there.
Todd Schumann.
No.
Chair Jeff Strand.
Yes.
Do you want to circle back to Scott? He had stepped away and I see he's got his headphones back on. Scott, we're just trying to, this is not any kind of commitment. We're just wanting to know if you are planning to attend the Planning Commission meeting tonight or not.
I can be there for 10 minutes, which is enough to be part of a quorum.
Right. Thank you.
And Mr. Chair, John, to answer Steve Brandt's question earlier that wasn't answered, the time certain is for the beginning. I do not believe there's a time delimited. Recall one time we did have about 75 people from East Phillips at a meeting, and I think everybody got a chance to talk for a minute or two. So thank you.
Okay, with that, are there any other questions or concerns before we dive into the comments? All right, seeing none. So I emailed this out around, I think it was about 9:30 this morning. Sorry that I didn't get that out a little bit earlier. Hopefully you at least had a chance to see that you got the email, and maybe at least some of you were able to go through the document and read the ones that were pertinent. So just that'll be our working document today. Does anybody not have that document? Okay, good. I'm gonna assume that means we've all got it. So working from page 1, there's nothing to do there. Those are the comments that we've passed, but just for the record, I want to keep us on track with that. And as new comments get added, sometimes there's overlap, so we just want to keep track of what we've already done. So moving to page 2, I think that's probably the best place to start. These were comments that were tabled last week, so I would propose that we just go through them in order. And to be clear going forward, unless there's some reason why you can't, I think it's going to be easiest if you just email comments directly to me and I'll circulate like this instead of using the online SharePoint. I know that Steve had some technical difficulties last week and may not have heard me say that. And he did, I just noticed it about 5 minutes before the meeting, he did submit a different draft of this comment that was tabled, this general comment, in SharePoint, which I didn't after I had distributed this. So I'll let him talk to that. I don't feel a need for us to get formal about voting things off the table, because this was done mostly just to give people time to come back and talk about it, and it wasn't really a strategy to try to derail something. So if nobody has an objection to that, I'm gonna just entertain a motion. And since Steve's the author, I'll recognize him first before we do that. Go ahead, Steve.
John, first page, I didn't realize it was on the first page, but I would like to withdraw the comment that I authored last time, if it's agreeable to the group, for paving 122 Dowling Avenue. The city staff has responded, and as I assumed, there were some very good reasons that this project is more expensive on a per mile basis than other reconstruction projects. And that is, I believe, posted in the SharePoint site under the inquiries. And so I would move to withdraw this as a comment, if that's agreeable. I get a second.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion on that motion? The motion is to withdraw the comment for PV 122, the first comment on the document. Okay, hearing none, let's call the roll on that.
So I just had a quick question.
Go ahead, Katie.
Yeah, so I was trying to look for those comments, Steve, and are they in the SharePoint? I don't see them under departmental responses.
I think they're under maybe inquiries. I'm having trouble switching back and forth here, but and I think I even maybe underlined. Let me check and see if it's under inquiries. Yes, I believe it's under the spreadsheet that says inquiries. Let me scroll down to 122. Here it is. Yes, it's in inquiries, which is where we posed our questions. It's line 12, and the departmental response is on the right-hand side of the page. I can read it if you'd like.
Go ahead, Steve, read it.
Okay. The PV 122 Dowling Avenue includes multiple infrastructure components to support the Upper Harbor Terminal project. This estimate includes reconstruction of 0.3 miles of Dowling Avenue North, reconstruction of 0.1 miles of 33rd Avenue North, construction of 0.9 miles of Parkway. Both Dowling Avenue North and 33rd Avenue North have expense and elements that are not included in the other projects referenced. These improvements include mainline and spur railroad tracks that will all be improved with active warning devices for both motorized and non-motorized traffic. The section of Dowling Avenue North has a greater density of traffic signals included in the construction, 4 traffic signals, 2 of which are for the I-94 on-off ramps, which adds to the per mile cost. The estimate also includes the improvements of existing utilities on existing roadways and the construction of new utilities in the undeveloped site along the proposed parkway. These utilities include water, sanitary, stormwater, as well as green infrastructure. So that's the response. I just wanted to know what the reason was, and they gave it.
Jeff, go ahead.
My comment is that although I seconded the motion to withdraw, the Upper Harbor project, of which this is a key and a pertinent roadway project, is critical for my community in North Minneapolis. And thus I feel it is worthy and a comment is warranted. And I applaud Mr. Brandt in his diligence to ferret out the facts about higher costs. So I think it might be wise to actually withdraw this comment, but rewrite for the next meeting a comment that explains the higher costs and the rationale for same. So I'll vote for this motion today, but I would like to see a comment. I think we'd contemplated something last year, didn't get it done, but we had comments, I believe, in 2018 and 2019 quick reports. Thank you.
Any further? Go ahead, Steve.
Jeff, I'm certainly willing to defer to you in writing that comment. Unless you want me to do it.
I'll take that charge. Thank you.
All right.
Katie, go ahead.
Another logistical thing, would someone be able to share the link to that inquiries spreadsheet? Because I've been searching through the SharePoint and I can't find anything labeled that.
I can email it out right now. This is excuse me.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, if there's nothing else, let's take a vote on the motion, which is to withdraw this comment.
Okay, John Bernstein,
Aye.
Steve Brandt,
Aye.
Sonia Garmlaw,
Aye.
Engel,
Aye.
Amity Foster,
Aye.
Ty Goodmanstead,
Aye.
Reese Hustad,
Aye.
Katie Jones,
Aye.
Matt Kaczynka,
Aye.
Erica Mauter,
Aye.
Dan Miller,
Aye.
George Montague,
Aye.
Todd Schumann,
Aye.
Chair Jeff Strand.
Aye.
With that, there's 14 ayes.
So the motion passes and that comment is withdrawn. Okay, so moving back to page 2, again, I'm going to dispense with going through the effort of pulling things off the table. We use a very loose modified Robert's rules, mostly just to make sure everybody gets heard. So I'll just entertain a motion on that first general comment that was tabled last week. You don't need to raise your hand. Nobody needs to raise their hand for this part. If you wanna.
Are you talking about the comment that last week or the comment that I rewrote and sent out shortly before the meeting?
Well, effectively the one you wrote last week, because the other one's not before everybody, but it's the same idea. So.
Okay. So are we taking it from the table and putting a substitute amendment in?
Yeah, let's just get it on the floor for discussion.
Okay, I'll move to, I guess I can't because, no, I didn't vote on the prevailing side. I'll move to take it from the table.
Yep. Just move it for passage. Don't forget the table step.
Okay.
I'll move it for passage. I was on the prevailing side. Strand.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right. So it's on the floor for discussion. Steve, Steve, maybe the best thing to do, since we've got people that need these read anyway, why don't you read the updated version of this?
Okay, great.
So just to clarify with everybody, the one that got into this document is the original, and he's updated it since then, but he did that in SharePoint, and I forgot to check there before I distributed this. So he's going to read the updated version.
Okay, this is to try and make it a more positive comment. This is a general comment. Click members pride themselves on giving capital budget requests through thorough scrutiny. Click recognizes that the conditions imposed by the COVID pandemic and the turnover of city staff assisting Click affected the schedule that Click was presented for its deliberations this year. As the city and Click meetings return to normal, Click asks that in the future its members be given a full 2 weeks between the release of CBRs and the first of the 2 sessions at which department representatives present their proposals and answer questions about them. Furthermore, Click members need a minimum of 2 weeks after the second all-day session to submit their rankings to staff. This promotes informed decision-making, and especially in years when Click turnover is high and all CBRs are unfamiliar to new members. So, can I speak to it?
Go ahead.
Okay. This is just an effort to try to get us back to the deliberative style that we had before the pandemic. Staff may not realize how important that is to some of us, even those of us who have more time because we're retired. It's often a real race to get everything read and all the presentations watched between the release of the CBRs and when we have to do rankings and ask questions. And I like to be well prepared for the presentation sessions, and I like to be well prepared for the ranking submission. I've tried to soften this comment. It's a general comment. I would disagree with, I think, a comment that I understood John to make last time, which was that we don't generally comment about quick processes. I did go back and find some examples of that in past quick reports, and we do comment sometimes on the things that help our process.
Go ahead, Jeff.
So if Brandt has not done so, I would move the Brandt substitute or second it, and then I'd like to speak to it.
Let's consider all that done, since that was the
Okay.
intent to begin with, and you speak to it. So what's on the floor is what Steve read.
I support Steve's substitute comment. I think it is important. And while with full transparency, it is somewhat the prerogative of the CLIC Executive Committee, and I will accept full responsibility with others for any further compression of the schedule this year due to COVID and other happenings. We are not paid city staff. We do not have full control of the process. We are all volunteers. So that said, I think it is important to pass this for our appointing authorities to recognize that we're doing our, darndest to get this process done in a very thorough, thoughtful, diligent manner.
So see no other hands. I'm going to speak to this as well. Again, there's nothing in this comment that I disagree with. I agree with all of it. I do not think it's necessary to make a comment, and I didn't. If I said that we don't comment on process, that's not correct. We comment on process. To my sense of this, we comment on process when we feel the need to have the appointees, political appointees, put pressure on staff to make things happen because we're not getting a response. And that's not the case here. This is a one-off thing. It's never happened before. It's a result of several things coming together. Number one, the pandemic. Number two, a bunch of new staff turnover. We've already gotten a commitment from Amelia that this won't happen again. She's already taken responsibility as the person that did this unwittingly, right? She gave city departments more time because they needed it, not realizing that that was going to compress the CLIC schedule. She now is fully aware of that and committed at one of our previous task force meetings to not let that happen again. So to me, this is not something where we need to be putting pressure on staff via a comment in the report. I would say that this is something that belongs in something we've talked about doing for quite a while that either didn't get done, or if it's gotten done, it's gotten lost. And that is a sort of a procedures manual, which would be very helpful going forward. So the next time, whether that's in 1 year or 10 years, there's a lot of turnover, there's an institutional record of how things ought to work so that things stay on track. And I think that would be a more appropriate place for this, and reserve comments for things where we're not getting a response, which is not the case with this. So I'm voting no. Are there any further comments? Okay, seeing none, let's call the roll on this one.
John Bernstein,
No.
Steve Brandt,
Aye.
Sonia DeGarmo,
Can I abstain?
You can.
I abstain.
Scott Engel,
Aye.
Amity Foster, Kai Goodnestead,
Abstain.
Risa Hustad,
Abstain.
Jones,
Nay.
Matt Kazinka,
Abstain.
Erica Mouter.
Nay.
Dan Miller.
Abstain.
George Montague.
Nay.
Todd Schumann.
Nay.
Chair Jeff Strand.
Aye.
So it looks like we have 4 ayes, 5 abstentions, and 5 noes.
That was my count.
Okay.
Anthony, you have a question? Go ahead. Or comment.
Yeah, so if we wanted to do something that you suggested, like create the process or some kind of guide, how do we go about doing that?
That's a great question. Jeff, do you remember, I know that the committees in the past have talked about doing a procedures manual. I don't think we have that, do we?
Click adopted a policies and procedures manual and the bylaws revisions, both.
Okay, I forgot.
I've asked staff to share that, and I'm awaiting it happening. I can probably scan it and send it around myself.
So here's what I would suggest to answer Amity's question directly, that at the end of this click session, if Jeff's willing, he has the power as the chair to appoint a subcommittee that can review that policies and procedures manual and make any updates or changes that are necessary, including one that addresses this. Because again, I don't have a problem. I agree with Steve's sentiments. I just don't think the public report is where it needs to be. Go ahead, Steve.
I just wanted to thank you for addressing this, regardless of what section of the report or which document it's in. Thanks.
Jeff, since this came up here, I don't think, I just want you to either agree or disagree with what I'm about to say. We had a lot of abstentions on that one, and my understanding of how you should use an abstention is if you feel you have some kind of a conflict of interest. If it's anything other than that, unless I'm missing it, I think it's best that everybody vote. Does that seem fair, Jeff?
You could have a category not voting. It might be the same, but it sometimes is tracked differently. So, Mr. Chair, I think it's probably might be best to move on. It may be that, with some other, with leadership having a difference of opinion, people maybe just wanted not to move on and not,
And that's kind of my point, is I don't want, because that was a little bit controversial in terms of where we were all, I don't want people to abstain for that reason. This is, people should all voice their opinion. If you have a real conflict, absolutely use an abstention. But, please use that sparingly. I mean, that was a pretty good example, right? We had as many abstentions as we had no votes, which is what carried it. So, all right. So moving on from that one does not pass. The comment on Water 12, well, that's something that Steve and I are going to work on. As I mentioned, we'll bring that something to the committee or to the task force next week to vote on. So moving to the Parkway paving comment, what I've done here is the first comment you see at the bottom of page 2 is the one that Dan submitted last week that we tabled. And the comment that you see at the top of page 3 is the edited version that he submitted for consideration this week. And I just put them both there so people were able to compare them if they wanted to. But the one that we're addressing is the second one that says reviewed May 6th. So that's the one that we're going to consider, and I'll entertain a motion on that comment. This is for Parkway paving.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, so we're considering the Parkway paving comment that appears at the top of page 3 of the document. Are there any comments? The floor is open for discussion. Go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, I'm wondering if it's worth reviewing, reading this just so it's read, and I'm willing to do that to save your voice, John, if that's okay.
Yeah, thank you. I want to do that on all of these. I think Scott needs that, and unless I'm mistaken, and it's probably helpful for everybody. So I'm happy to read it, but if you want to, go ahead.
I'll just give you a break in your voice and see how I can do it here. This program is greatly appreciated by Parkway users who have survived years with substandard conditions that are a safety hazard and can cause damage to their vehicles. Unfortunately, this new pavement can induce increased speeding and a reduced awareness of pedestrians. It is CLIC's understanding that the Parkway paving program does not include adding enhanced pedestrian crossings, nor does any other MPRB or Public Works program for parkways. A complete streets approach to encouraging pedestrian access across parkways and making drivers aware of pedestrians is to include crossing enhancements during parkway paving projects. In 2020-2021, Theodore Wirth Parkway paving Plymouth to 29th, 4 intersections at Plymouth, McNair, 26th and 29th should be given consideration for similar pedestrian crossing signs and pavement markings to connect neighborhoods to park amenities. Likewise, St. Anthony Parkway, University to Stinson, program for 2023-24 is in need of crossing enhancements. Observations driving the grand rounds reveal a significant difference in use of pedestrian crossings on either side of 94 through 394. CLIC encourages a city review of records on enhanced crossing locations to determine if these observations are true and to report how to address the discrepancy if found.
Okay, so with that, we have a queue. I'll recognize Jeff and then Scott.
All right, thanks. Thanks, Chair. I support the comment. My only addition is I did draw attention to the 2020 CLIC report comment where the committee was questioning the adequate or inadequate level of funding. And so I don't know if the author would take that as a adding a sentence in there just to reiterate that. I feel as if I don't recall getting the answer to that question. And I think we even had a park official comment either in 2019 or 2020 about the inadequacy of the funding overall.
Hey, Dan, just hang on. If you want to speak, get in queue. We've got a queue going here. No worries. Go ahead, Scott.
Yeah, I generally support this. I just have a piece of information that when I served on the Pedestrian Advisory Committee, this was a frustration that we had. I think one of the main issue here is that Public Works perceives repaving projects as solely dedicated to the pavement, and they do not put money towards pedestrian crossings using paving money. And so this is that's why there are new programs in the CIP like pedestrian improvements. I'm not sure, I don't know the part about between the north and south sides, the pedestrian crossings, but it's just that Public Works perceives repaving projects as solely for the pavement.
Steve and then Katie.
I was going to address the financial side of this as well. It seems to me that if we're asking them to add to the scope of what they do when they repave a section of parkway by adding these markings, we need to think about supporting an increase in the budget. I don't know whether it would be 50,000 or 100,000 or whatever, because otherwise the impact, if they implemented this, would be to pave fewer miles of parkway.
Katie.
Yeah, I guess I would like to suggest one alteration to the comment because I do support it, and I think we can make it stronger by removing the last sentence of the first paragraph and instead inserting CLIC encourages a redefinition of the park paving program to include simple or it could pedestrian crossing improvements in order to address complete streets goals or something to that effect.
I'm going to take the opportunity to piggyback off of what Katie said. I support the concept of this comment fully. It's just no excuse for repaving these things and not addressing pedestrian crossings when they're there. That they need to do that. But I feel like this comment could be dramatically strengthened several ways. One is, did we get answers, Dan, to your questions that you submitted? I didn't see them.
No, they were submitted on Friday, so
Right.
there may be a delay, but I
Right.
think some parts of this are going to be difficult for them to answer. I don't hold out much hope for it.
So that's a big if, whether we can get those answers, and I'm happy to help work on this. But I think finding out whether they in fact they have any projects that include enhanced pedestrian crossings. I think our general belief is they do not, but let's confirm that. Let's let them say that instead of having to wait a full year for them to respond in a comment. And then I think this can be strengthened and just say very directly, whether you need more funding in PV 001 or you need to create a traffic CBR that works in combination with these kinds of resurfacing projects that Scott mentioned, where they don't address this kind of thing. So they've got a pot of money that they can go to when they're doing any kind of repaving that allows them. It would be a similar program to the asphalt resurfacing program and the concrete resurfacing program. It's just a pedestrian crossings pool of money that they can access whenever they're doing any kind of repaving, because that's just a ridiculous excuse in my view. And on the inequity part of it, we can address that. I think that could be strengthened too. I don't know the answers to this, but my guess is that what they've done is based on traffic counts, and in the process of doing that, there is a correlation between not necessarily a causation, but a correlation between the north side and the south side. So if we can find that out and acknowledge that and say, look, okay, it makes sense to do things on traffic count, but you may also want to consider overall equity and balance that against traffic counts, because it looks like most of this work has been done on the south side of the city and not the north side. I just think we should be much more direct about this. We're likely to get better answers and better responses, or at least, put them on the spot. With that, I'll recognize Katie.
Yeah, so to just address your first part, John, I think, yeah, maybe, so even changing whatever I had been saying there to either provide that we need to redefine the Parkway paving program or ask them to partner with, or it to be linked to a pedestrian project or program makes sense. And I think we could also just mention that Public Works does this already with like sewer projects. We already know that they have programs that work in concert, and this is a particular one that needs to be working better in concert with other programs. And then I would almost shy away from mentioning pedestrian or counts in any way. I've been trying to follow a number of transportation-oriented organizations more recently, and there's a kind of a philosophical approach that one could take here, that really, if we're trying to create a more pedestrian and bicycle friendly city, then we can't have that based on existing counts. We have to just build it so they will come type of thing. And so I guess for that reason, I would almost shy away from adding to anything about counts.
Go ahead, Steve.
I would just, I support the comment, first of all. I think it's appropriate. My thinking as an observer of the Southside Park system is that the major improvements would have really enhanced pedestrian crossings have come at the chain of lakes on the northeast corner of Bade-Makaska and the southeast corner of Harriet. And there are lots of bells and whistles there that have been added. But those came not as part of the Parkway paving program, but as part of the regional park funding in implementation of approved master plans. And sometimes it's the cycle, the portion of the cycle that you're in. But it might, as long as it looks like this comment might be reworked a bit, to suggest that that the park board devote some of its regional park funding to these improved crossings as each regional park, of which the Grand Rounds is one, comes up in the Metro funding cycle.
Okay, so there's nobody else in queue. I want to respond to what Katie just said about counts, and then I'm going to make a suggestion for how we proceed on this comment. So my point with counts is that my guess is they're probably relying on that more heavily than they ought to. So I think we're kind of in agreement there, but I don't think counts is totally useless, right? I mean, to a certain extent, it applies to equity in terms of it's a way to try to prioritize spending the dollars on the largest number of people that are going to be impacted, but you can't do that in a black box. They got to look at other stuff too, like what part of the city is it? Is doing it, if they only do that, if all that's going to do is fix the area around the lakes, that's a problem, right? But all else equal, in balancing everything, it's a useful piece of information as well, I believe. Anyway, here's what I would suggest we do. There seems to be pretty broad agreement about the importance of this comment. I would suggest we take a vote on this comment and pass it as is, and hopefully we'll get some answers, and I or someone else will come up with another version of this that we'll just offer as a substitute. But so we have something that can go in the report. I'm going to suggest that we go ahead and pass this one, if that sounds okay to everybody. And I'll recognize Jeff, and then if anybody wants to comment on that, they can. Otherwise, we'll proceed to a vote. Go ahead, Jeff.
Okay, I'm supportive of that action. I just would like to see one sentence added to indicate the need for additional funding, as I think Steve Brandt concurred. And I'm also supportive of the amendment to the final sentence that Katie indicated. So I'll put that in the chat just for ease of memory.
Thanks for bringing that up. I meant to address that. If you're talking about the $750,000 a year that this program gets, and the comment we've made in the past about the fact that doesn't do very much year to year, particularly given the condition of the parkways around the city, I feel like that might be more effective in a different comment, because it's really a different issue, right? If we're going to address money in this comment, let's address specifically money for pedestrian crossings and do a separate comment that says, hey, are you guys spending enough on repaving parkways every year? I think you're confusing two issues. Does anybody want to respond? Or if not, Dan, you're the author of this, so I feel like we ought to defer to you.
Well, first of all, I appreciate the time that people spent helping me think about this at the last meeting. And I think that it takes me several revisions to get things down to as simply as I can. In other words, not to make a long document, but to make one that is as short as can be and will be read and hits at a couple points. So this is my latest version of that. I've listened to people. I see merit in trying to do some of these things, but I also question how I can keep this tight and kind of contained. So I would back voting on this and passing it, and then trying to add in some of this stuff just to kind of get it to the next step.
Okay, go ahead, Scott.
I don't know. I guess I feel like it makes more sense to rework it and have more of a final version. And so I'm going to vote no against this, even though I support the general concept.
So I'll just respond to that. I mean, I think this potentially could be a final version. That doesn't mean we couldn't do a stronger final version, but that relies on getting some information from Public Works in a timely manner and all the rest of it. So just so that we have something, remember, this has got to pass the full committee. That's why I feel like it's useful to go ahead and pass this now, with the understanding that with more information, we're going to try to create a substitute for it. Having said that, if there's no further comments, we'll call the roll. So we're voting on whether to pass the amendment that appears, excuse me, the comment that appears at the top of page 3. If I understood Dan correctly, we're going to take it as it is without any of the further suggestions that were made.
I'm fine either way. I just think getting something down, I think John is good. And again, based upon if Katie can get me her comments on that and other, I've been taking notes here as to what everyone has said. I've got Jeff's comment. I can try to work this stuff in. It's 1 o'clock. I think there's some merit to kind of not making this any too much bigger. So thank you.
Okay, let's go ahead and vote on the comment. Neil, can you call the roll?
John Bernstein.
Aye.
Steve Brandt.
Aye.
Dick Armo.
Aye.
No.
Amity Foster.
Aye.
Goodness said.
Aye.
Lucy Hustad.
No.
Katie Jones.
Aye.
Matt Kazinka.
Aye.
Erica Mauter.
Aye.
Dan Miller.
Aye.
George Montague.
Aye.
Schumann.
Aye.
Chair Jeff Strand.
Aye.
12 ayes and 2 nays.
Okay, so that passes, but we're going to try to revisit that one. All right, the next one, similar to the one above, the comment shows twice the original one that was tabled in the middle of page 3, and then at the bottom of page 3, the edited version. So we're going to deal with the edited version. The other one is there just for comparison purposes, and I'll entertain a motion on this one.
You care to read the motion,
Oh,
John?
thank you. I keep forgetting. Yeah, let me read this one. So this is on PV 127, 37th Avenue Northeast, from Central Avenue Northeast to Stinson Boulevard. And the edited comment reads as follows. This combined Minneapolis and Columbia Heights reconstruction project is an opportunity to bridge these communities, expand multimodal options, and add greening. 37th Avenue is part of the Minneapolis All Ages and Abilities Network extending over 2 miles from Main Street Northeast to Stinson Boulevard. It's an important east and west route for accessing recreation, shopping, and work centers. In 2018, the Minneapolis 37th Avenue Northeast, Main Street to University asphalt resurfacing did not include a striped parking lane. This could have added additional safety for pedestrians and bicyclists where there is an existing 4-foot sidewalk on the Minneapolis side, none on the Columbia Heights side, and an overly wide unmarked street. The 2019-2020 Minneapolis 37th Avenue Northeast University to Central asphalt surfacing project was done in conjunction with a new Columbia Heights multi-use path. This path is substandard in width, pavement markings, wayfinding, and lighting. Minneapolis and Columbia Heights missed opportunities with these past projects to strengthen this shared multimodal route. PV 127 is an opportunity to do more than the bare minimum for multi-use trail facilities, which is the last segment of the 37th Avenue corridor. The proposed 10-foot multi-use trail has available street right-of-way to easily increase this width to reduce user conflicts. Its regional solicitation grant has a significant budget line item for pedestrian lighting, which both Minneapolis and Columbia Heights planners have not acknowledged. Minneapolis needs to be more involved in this shared municipal project and not allow it to fall short of its complete streets, transportation action plan, and street design guidelines. So I'll entertain a motion on that comment.
I'll move it. Grant.
Is there a second?
Katie.
So the motion is on the floor. Is there any discussion on this comment? Last call. Any discussion, any comments on this before we vote to approve it? Hearing none. Neil, can you call the roll on the approval of this comment, PB 127?
John Bernstein,
Aye.
Steve Brandt. Steve Brandt,
Aye.
DeGarmo,
Aye.
Scott
Aye.
Engel, Amity Foster,
Aye.
Goodmanstead,
Aye.
Teresa Hustad,
Aye.
Katie Jones,
Aye.
Matt Kazinka,
Aye.
Erica Moucher, Dan Miller,
Aye.
George Montague, Schumann,
Aye.
Mayor Jeff Strand,
Aye.
I'm sorry, I,
is that George
Yes.
Montague?
That is a aye.
yes,
Okay,
yes,
so
sorry.
that's 13 ayes.
All right, so that comment passes. So now we're on to page 4. This is the new section. These are new comments for consideration today. And I'll entertain a motion on SWK. Well, let me read it first. This is SWK02. This is sidewalk gaps. We are disappointed that funding for SWK02 sidewalk gaps is being paused and underfunded in the proposed 2022 to 2027 capital improvements program. The program constructs sidewalks in areas where they have not existed, fulfilling the city's goal to prioritize pedestrian infrastructure. The city has priorities for a purpose: to decide where funding goes when funding levels shift. Filling in missing sidewalks is a practical way to improve mobility and safety for pedestrians, and almost all city plans reference this prioritization, including the Minneapolis 2040 Comprehensive Plan, Complete Streets, and Vision Zero policies, and Transportation Action Plan. If leverage outside funding is necessary to fill this program, CLIC would like to know what that looks like. And I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move this.
Second.
Comments on this motion? Steve, go ahead.
I just want to voice strong support for this. I mean, the $300,000 cost of this is pocket change for the city in comparison to some of the other paving projects. Does anybody know what 300,000 gets us in a year? I didn't retain that from my review. How many miles of sidewalk or fractions of a mile?
I want to say that got us just about a block.
Yeah. Katie, go ahead.
Yeah, I also wanted to voice my strong support of this, and just a couple of minimal typing changes. I think typically we try to say like CLIC is disappointed instead of we, just in kind of a stylistic thing. And then the word city needed to be capitalized in a couple of places.
Yeah, I consider that kind of stuff to be the sort of cleanup that'll happen at the end, but we can make some of those changes as we're going to. I'd like to see, I'm supportive of the comment. I'd like to see us strengthen the last sentence. I think it's too soft. I think we need to say fund the damn project. Not in those exact words, but basically.
I think it should be those exact words.
I mean, and as Steve pointed out, you know, if they're trying to figure out how to rearrange things, you know, 300 grand is not the place to be doing that. They've got plenty of projects where they can do that, and this ain't it. Amity, go ahead. And then Matt.
Keep forgetting where the unmute button is. So I wrote this with Scott's input and support. I'm open to all of those comments, and I'm going to edit it to say that.
Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, I would just say, I think the last sentence too, I think it could be strengthened simply by saying CLIC urges the city to reincorporate funding for this program and leverage outside funding if necessary.
Let's do some editing on the fly on this one. Did what Matt just said sound good, Amity? All right, let's try to do that right now.
think John stopped breathing.
All right, so this is my proposal to replace the last sentence. It's going to be 2 sentences. Click urges the city to reinstate funding for this program with no delays. Additionally, we encourage the city to seek outside funding as an increase to and not a replacement for previous funding levels. I mean, at a block a year, right, we're going to be ruled by robots before they get this done.
Second.
All right. So, Matt, do you have your hand up, or did I just forget to lower it? Okay, I got it. Does anybody want me to reread the whole comment with that change, or are we good? All right, I think it looks like we're good. So we're going to vote on the comment for SWK02 with the changes that I just read. The changes I read is 2 sentences that will replace the current last sentence there. Neil, can you call the roll?
John Bernstein.
Aye.
Grant.
Aye.
Sandy DeGarmo.
Aye.
Bill.
Aye.
Andy Foster.
Aye.
Pat Goodmanstead.
Aye.
Lisa Hustad.
Aye.
Judy Jones.
Aye.
Mika.
Aye.
Erica Mounter. Erica Mounter. Dan Miller.
Aye.
George Montague.
Aye.
Freeman.
Aye.
Chair Jeff Strand.
Aye.
That's 13 ayes.
So that passes. All right, keeping things moving. The next comment we're considering, again on the middle of page 4, this is PV 122, Dowling Avenue, I-94 to First Street North, and this also encompasses Art 01, Art in Public Spaces. I'll read the comment. Click is appreciative that PV 122 will address pedestrian safety and aesthetic issues over the I-94 overpass by coordinating improvements with Art 01. Similar conditions exist over I-94 overpass on 26th Avenue North, separating the Hawthorne and Jordan neighborhoods from the Great Northern Greenway River overlook. Consideration should be given to determine if similar improvements can be coordinated in conjunction with PV 122 and Art 01. So, do I have a motion?
I'll move it.
Second.
All right, so the motion's on the floor. Steve's in queue. I'm a little confused by this. Did you mean to say PV 122 twice? It feels like it's supposed to be referencing a separate, another project, or am I just not reading it correctly? Go ahead, Dan, and then I'll recognize Steve.
I believe that there are 2 projects on Dowling Avenue, and the one that I believe this is the correct one that references this section of Dowling Avenue between that basically is I-94 to First Street. And there's another section that there's another PV whatever that goes farther west.
So the way it reads now, it says in the first paragraph, we're glad you're doing this. And then in the second paragraph, it says, please do this. So it's the same project. One of them needs to be something different. I'm assuming 122 is where you want them to do it. So that's correct in the second paragraph, but it's a different project you're referencing in the first paragraph.
I'm referencing the appreciation of them looking at making the crossing over I-94 to improve it both aesthetically and make it more welcoming to get to the Upper Harbor Terminal. Several years ago, in 2017, they did a project on 26th Avenue North, and once it gets past North Minneapolis up to the overpass, it becomes a barrier. It's kind of an industrial desert. And if you would have read in the paper this morning, the Great Northern Greenway River Overlook was featured as being a brand new facility. So the idea behind this thing is just, boy, is there some economy and volume that you could, you're hiring an artist, you're looking at doing an art treatment on Dowling that will both improve the aesthetics as well as the safety. Is there a chance that you could somehow find the money within this project at the same time to consider 26th Avenue? So 26th Avenue is not in any program at all. It is just, it's a problem of crossing 94 in a different location.
Okay, now I understand the comment. So I don't know if that was just me or if we need to, if you read it carefully, it's clear, but I clearly didn't read it carefully enough. So I don't know if we need to tighten that up a little bit. I'm going to recognize Steve.
Dan and I both are involved in an advocacy group for 26th Avenue and a larger set of recreational trails. So I just want to put that out there at the start. I have some qualms, Dan, about this. If the suggestion is that the art be placed essentially on the freeway overpass for a couple reasons. One is the potential interference with walking and cycling traffic. And the other is that it strikes me that art is best appreciated when it's not overwhelmed by freeway noise. For example, up the hill at the corner of Lyndale and 26, there's a nice piece of art from Art in Public Places that is, it's a relatively quiet corner of a park. I would prefer that we suggest, somewhere from that last section of 26th Avenue North as it approaches the river, a location be found. And it's a hard place to cite a piece of art because there's private property and there's the freeway bridge, and then there's the very dusty conditions that adjoin the various trucking facilities and sand and gravel yards. But I'm not sure that this is the best place. But if we give more latitude in where it was placed, it might satisfy my issue.
Maybe go ahead.
Yeah, I was just trying to understand like the placement of these and where the ask is. So it seems to be that PV 122, it's an existing project, and we're stating that there are these conditions at this project, and this project is getting art to be added to it. And it almost sounds like there's an ask for a new project at North 26th Avenue. And so yeah. I've only teased that out through this conversation, and it wasn't clear to me while reading the comment. So I guess I would say that the second paragraph should be revised to make it very clear that we would like a new project in, at 26th Avenue somewhere to have, art as a part of it.
Yeah, thank you. So I wasn't the only one. And, now as I think about this, and this becomes a little bit more clear, I think this is in the wrong committee. This is really an Art 101 comment, and this is something that comes under the purview of human development. So now that I understand the comment, I think that we should probably suspend on this, and this should be submitted to human development. Jeff, go ahead.
Thanks. I was going to ask similar thing that the maker would work with, as I volunteered to work on the former Steve Brandt PV 122 comment, maybe we'll work together on that. And then I think you're right on that the bridge treatment in North Minneapolis is woefully inadequate, even with the Camden Bridge notwithstanding. So rather than spending all of our meeting time wordsmithing, if we could voluntarily table this and then work on it, bring it back either next week or to the HD as appropriate.
Yeah, I mean, this really feels like an HD comment to me. I mean, it relates to what's happening in a transportation comment, but the ask and spend is all HD. It's Art 01, so I think that it's best submitted there.
Yeah, I would just like to say that it does impact transportation because this is specifically a bridge improvement. And and what is on 26 is bollards and a little that cars overrun often. So this is more like what is going on what MnDOT did on 42nd Avenue, and they're doing on 26th on the 22nd on the south side, on 5th in northeast, southeast. It's making something that, again, is an improvement physically, but they're including some artwork, whether that is just getting rid of the chain link fence or adding something to the chain link fence to soften it. And I am more than welcome to work with Jeff on this, to keep going and submit it back to HD, and I think it also should go here too. But you know,
actually, as you continue to clarify this, I think it's okay that it's here. Now I'm understanding this better. That this is they're really just working in conjunction with the art people. It's actually transportation stuff. So I'll talk to Eric and just from a courtesy heads up that we're going to address this one because it sort of falls in the middle, and you could argue it either way. But you work with Jeff and bring it back to this committee next week. Katie, go ahead.
Yeah, just a quick question. There isn't an existing project at 26, is there?
no,
Okay.
it was improved in it was improved in 2017 with some bollards and some striping, and that's what's on the bridge today.
So to Katie's point, when you revise this comment, you may want to start with addressing it that way. That you're also requesting that they do these they create another PV project to improve that bridge, and then in addition, you want these aesthetics as well. Hey Dan, can you mute? There's some feedback coming through from you. Thank you. Okay, I'm just watching the clock here. Let's see if we can at least get started on one more before we have to adjourn for the day. So that's PV 137 that starts at the bottom of page 4, and I'll read that one first. So this is PV 137, 29th Avenue Northeast from Central Avenue Northeast to Stinson. It was a surprising and significant disappointment to have this CBR delayed 3 years from a 2024 to a 2027 proposed installation. 29th and Johnson Street is the heart of this vibrant neighborhood business node. Audubon Park and Northeast Middle School are a few blocks in either direction of this intersection on 29th. A new unannounced CP rail yard entrance was recently created at Central and 29th to increase freight transportation in and out of a newly expanded freight container depot. A reconstructed 29th Avenue will discourage its use as a commercial freight route. A reconstructed 29th Avenue is included in the Audubon Park neighborhood small area plan and a separate 29th Avenue study in existence for over a decade. This past year, the neighborhood organization has been doing visioning discussions in advance of the now delayed 2024 reconstruction. The city needs to prioritize reconsideration of this delay. Do I have a motion?
Moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second it for discussion.
Okay, the motion is on the floor, and I'll recognize Steve.
Dan, I was brought up short by your sentence that a reconstructed 29th Avenue will discourage its use as a commercial freight route. Could you just explain your reasoning on that, please?
Because it's a wide 2-lane with 2 parking lanes stretching from Central Avenue to Highway 88, and you will get freight traffic up. Freight can move there, but they will shrink the width of that street and make it more of a complete street. So that's the reasoning to get people to that parks, to get to the Johnson intersection, and to get to the school. Yeah.
Thanks.
I might add that the railroad expansion was done by surprise, and what they do now, or it used to go up and down University and 37th, and that's still a primary route, or to Lowry, and those are still primary routes. But being that that entrance was added to 29th, it looks like a very possible way where freight traffic could increase, and that's something that one would like to discourage.
Katie, go ahead.
Sorry, I was trying to take down my hand. Shoot, what was my question? Oh, have we asked Public Works why they've delayed it?
It was an MSA street, and the gas tax that supports MSA has been reduced during the funds from the gas tax have been reduced, so the MSA funds are reduced, and this was a project that was selected because it had a fair amount of MSA funds behind it.
Okay, so that's it's a funding issue. There's nothing, we haven't heard anything from Public Works as to like changing conditions or anything else that would delay the project.
Well, it's been delayed 3 years, so the intent of this is to make sure that they're watching it and to let them realize it's an important street, and if MSA funding rebounds, to make it a priority to reconsider their delay.
So I'm going to put myself in queue here, and start by just acknowledging that I know the area, but I'm not intimately familiar with these details. So my comment has nothing to do with that. I would just broadly say that we're in a period of time where we all know the city does need to cut back, right? I mean, there's a shortage of funds, and they need to, something has to be cut somewhere or delayed or whatever it is. You know, sidewalk gaps at $300,000 is not where they ought to be spending their time. This is an $11.5 million project. This is a big one, and like I said, something has to be delayed. So I don't know if this is the right one or not, but I think we need to be careful about saying, move this up, move that up, move this up. Not to suggest that that's what everybody's doing, but I think we want to be very mindful of that, because we're also probably going to have comments saying you guys need to watch your spending. Go ahead, Steve.
I wondered if Dan would be amenable to saying something on the order of the city should reconsider the timing of this project when and if state aid returns to normal levels.
I'd like to see something like that that says, you know, accelerated from where you've now rescheduled it to. Keep an eye on funding, and if funding comes back sooner than expected, please accelerate this one. I think that's a reasonable request.
Yeah, I can do that. That's kind of what I was implying, but we can spell that out.
All right, so that we can keep, well, we're at 128. So let's propose, let's revisit this one next week. I'll work with you, Dan, to see if we can introduce that language and make that a little bit more clear in it. I don't think we want to try to tackle anything else today, but I would just highlight that we got several more to get through here, and the next one, PB 157, is another one it's the same theme that I just mentioned, right? I mean, it's a project where the citizen is very frustrated with the fact that it's been delayed, and if I were in there, I'd probably be equally frustrated or more. At the same time, it's an expensive project, and the traffic counts in that area aren't very high, so there's a lot of things to balance, and we need to keep in mind that this is a period of time when we're telling them you need to watch your dollars, so we can't be telling them watch your dollars and accelerate all these projects at the same time. So with that said, that's one we'll review next week. Scott, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention it's a follow-up to last week, Nicollet Avenue and at Lake and across the Greenway Bridge. I did send a request for information about the lack of a CBR for the project. I sent it to Robert and Justin and maybe Neil, I don't remember, but I haven't heard back. Maybe Robert can say if he's heard anything.
Yeah, he's next in queue, so I'll recognize him for whatever he wanted to ask or say, and then he can address your question as well. Go ahead, Robert.
Sure. Yeah, I can speak to that. I know that question has been, or inquiry has been forwarded on to Public Works. We can follow up on the status of it. Ensure we know when a response is coming back. I know they have it, and they are addressing additional questions and comments right now. And I did have a last item. I did want to just tack on to the end of this meeting. You know, for those folks who are able and interested to join this evening's call with the Planning Commission, I just wanted to say thanks. This has not been a requirement in past years for CLIC members, and it's been I think a late notice this year. But thank you for those who are able to join us at 6 o'clock. We will forward out the call-in details, and I just wanted to note for the benefit of the CLIC chairs and executive committee who will also be on the call that, you know, in order to attend and just be counted for roll call as well, I think it's *6 to unmute for this meeting as well. So just wanted to note we'll be sending out that invite shortly after this task force meeting is concluded.
So I'm going to piggyback with some more comments about this issue because I think it's relevant, and I want to be on record with this. I think the city clerk's office is making a big mistake in this case, and they seem, at least from my perspective, I'd love to hear a response from them, but they seem to be focused on nothing other than complying with every last letter of their interpretation of open meeting law, which by my own read is well beyond what the state requires. And this particular meeting has one sole purpose, and that is for citizens of the city of Minneapolis to voice concerns about existing projects they need. It's public input. CLIC as a committee does not vote at that meeting. We gather information. So in the city clerk's office zealotry to make sure that they're crossing the T's and dotting the I's, if they decide that this meeting isn't valid for some reason, the only people they're hurting are the citizens of the city who are trying to get public input. As it is, CLIC is a mysterious body. It's hard for the average citizen. Most don't even know this exists, and we're trying very hard to improve public input. And this is putting an unnecessary obstacle in the way of that. And this is a time when they need to be balancing their goals with the other goals of committees like this in the city. Are there any comments or concerns to address before we close the meeting? Neil, go ahead.
Yeah, one last thing. So the 3 comments that you received from the public, you can forward those on to Robert and I, and we can make sure that those are addressed in the hearing tonight.
Okay, thank you. I will do that at the right after the meeting is done. So just to be clear, the ask is that those be made a part of the public record of that meeting. And I'll forward them on. So with that, if not, there.
Move to adjourn.
Yeah, well, hang on. I will ask members and staff if there are any other matters to come before this meeting. Hearing none, if not and without objection, I will declare this adjourned. Our next meeting will be Wednesday, May 19th. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Enjoy the weather.